Welcome to episode 5 of Completely Cricket. Hosting this episode today is myself, Avinash Adasan. Alongside me, we have Tom Ritchie, London School's all-rounder. In today's episode, we'll be analysing England and Australia's performances in the first test, as well as looking at squad possibilities in the second test. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we go on to any analysis of England and Australia's performance, just wanted to highlight the no ball and snicker issues that were in the first test. Ben Stokes bowled apparently 14 no balls that weren't spotted by the no ball tracking system because it was unavailable. This is a bit shocking because 14 no balls means 14 extra runs and could have easily had a small impact on the game. Like, what do you think about this, Tom?
Well, I mean, 14 is like too much. It's like if like the umpires have missed a couple or two or three because of glitches, then I understand technical difficulties. But 14 is unacceptable in like most highly anticipated test series in like the whole world, and possibly the best series that there's ever been. So I think in like then I think it would be less unacceptable. But here, then it has to stop because otherwise it's going to ruin more test matches.
Yeah, we're very lucky they didn't have a huge impact because realistically, it's not exactly stopping a team from winning. But I still think that because this technology isn't even that high tech, it's a basic that they have in all World Test Championship matches, which is all Test cricket. So then it's a bit disappointing that they don't have it available. And then there was a second part to this issue: the umpires not having Snicko. They couldn't. The Australian team couldn't review it. Darwin Milan himself has said that he didn't edge it. However, Marnus Labuschagne has stated that he didn't hear anything, but several of his teammates did hear a sound. So it could have been either way. We don't know who's like correct and who's not. Do you think that wicket could have had a big impact if it was a wicket, Tom?
Well, how many runs was Milan on again? Sorry,
I'm not sure. I think it was on I think it was around 40 or 50. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, okay, 40 or 50. That's like a huge impact. That's 40 runs, 50. Yeah, 40 more runs for Milan. It's like in that 40 runs, then Stokes could have come in and, if he got his 14 runs or something he got in the second innings, 14, then the rest of the team got lower and lower. Then it would have been like much more embarrassing defeat. So I think England have been given a favour by not having Ultra Edge and having the chance that Milan was out. Because 40 less runs and England would have lost by an innings and 20 runs. So it's a bit lucky.
Yeah, no, I agree. But even on the flip side, we don't even know that the wicket of Darwin Milan at an earlier stage could have made the future batsmen sort of graft in and work a bit harder because we saw that batsmen were still playing their shots once Root and Milan got out. Sure, people like Butler, Pope were still playing their shots, so it could have meant that England could have started the run rate could have slowed, but they were starting to build, and they might have been building even stronger. So it could have gone either way. I think it's really irritating, especially for an Ashes series, that they don't have this technology available because it's not even that. It's not high tech technology. It should be readily available. And I think all test playing teams have it available. So why doesn't Australia, which is arguably one of the biggest teams, why do they not have it available? Is the real question. But we're lucky it didn't have a big impact. I think we can let's go on to start analysing the performances of Australia and England. Let's start with Australia as the winning team. What positive things do you think they could take from this test, Tom?
I think Travis Head, I don't really think he got going in the 2019 Ashes. He might have got a half century or two, but he didn't put in like any huge headline performances. But here he's still in the show with like 150 off 150. And without him, Australia would have just got a completely average score. Also, David Warner is in very good form, 94, and didn't bat in second innings. Again, in the Ashes 2019, he didn't really have that much of an impact. So 94 in the first test will confidence. And then the batting of the tail from Cummins, Stark, Lyon, and Hazelwood, the bottom four, they put 60 runs on the board. That's far too many for England to concede at the bottom end. So I think their batting lineup is very, very strong. Then their bowling, I think Mitchell Stark getting a wicket on the first ball was a huge boost in confidence, and without that, they might not have sort of ripped up the England batting lineup as they did. So
Yeah.
without their really powerful start, then I don't think they would have bowled so well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on the David Warner not batting in the second innings. Obviously, David Warner is the opening batsman. There are reports that David Warner has bruised his ribs, so it doesn't seem like it's the thing that could put him out of the second test, but it is something to consider. David Warner might not be, he might be in good form, but he might not be able to bat fluently, and that could also that's not that for a batsman that's on pretty decent form. That isn't very good for Australia. They've also got Josh Hazlewood, who's feeling sore. There are reports saying that he won't be playing and he's flown back to his house. So he might be missing out the second test, which is a day-night test. That makes Hazlewood's importance even more significant as like a very metronomic line length bowler. Um, yeah, I think the thing that really separates England and Australia is the lower order batting. Obviously, both teams in times they can have batsmen who they can score big totals. Australia do it more often than England do, and both teams have good bowling attacks. But England's lower order, except for Woakes, don't really fire. They never really at least score anything that significant enough to give their team a hope. Like we've seen recently with New Zealand in the India New Zealand Test series. New Zealand's lower order twice actually really changed the match for New Zealand and batted and defended really, really well and saving New Zealand in one occasion. So all good teams have a really strong lower order. Australia do, New Zealand do, even India do. So England, as being one of those top four Test teams, don't really have a strong lower order, and I think that's something that England really need to look at because realistically, in the Ashes, I think it's going to be whoever bats the best wins, whoever scores the most runs wins, because that's what it's looked like so far. Craig Overton, he's also been working on a bit more of his like pace. Like he was more in a few years ago. He was a more of like a low 80s or high 70s bowler. Now he bowls like consistently mid 80s. I'm a personal fan of Craig Overton. I like his bowling. So I think and also his batting. He's a very capable batsman. And Dom Bess as well has been used as night watchman. So that would definitely strengthen the lower order. It depends
Yeah,
though whether how much England how much England are willing to sacrifice because they're not going to get express pace from Craig Overton. They will get it from Mark Wood, but are they willing to sacrifice that for more batting stability? I think they should. I think that realistically, batting is going to win them the game. Obviously, bowling is incredibly important. I'm not going to say that bowling isn't, but they need batting is realistically going to win them the game.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, England, in terms of positives, what positive things do you think England can take from this test?
Well, we talked about the low order batting and how it hasn't been great, but look at Chris Woakes. I mean, he's batted pretty well, like 20 in the first innings and 15 or 16 in the next, compared to like the people around him who are getting half that score or like much, much slower strike rate. So I think that's one positive. Also, Chris Woakes, again, opening the bowling, I did think he would have like the right sort of pace to open the bowling. But in the first innings, 25 overs, 2 for 76. It's pretty good, I think. And then the second innings only bowled a couple of overs. But when you look at that economy, 3, and when you look at Australia's overall economy, which was like over 4, then I think that just shows you like how good a bowler he can be. Also, sort of like carrying form over from the tests earlier this year. 3 for 58 in the first innings, which I think is a really, really good effort from one. Because he bowled like so well in the India series. And it's good to see that he can do it abroad as well, not just like in England where the ball swings a lot more. The bowling attack is something that will be looked on as a positive for England.
Yeah, I think Ollie Robinson was a perfect timing with Josh Archer having a long-term injuries. We needed someone sort of like to not exactly fill his space, but just to sort of supplement the bowling attack. And Ollie Robinson could easily be leading the bowling attack, or could be in partnership with Josh Archer in a way, like the two main bowlers for England. Because Ollie Robinson, he is the consistency that he shows, the accuracy. and also the fact that he doesn't. It's not like he's strong in one conditions and bad in the other. Like as far as we know, everywhere he's played well. Obviously, he hasn't had the full experience of he hasn't been to a lot of test countries and played, but he looks really good at the moment.
Yeah, I would say so because like him and Archer and then Broad and Anderson would be like a pretty good partnership in bowling because Broad and Anderson have been doing the same thing they've done for like many years and it's worked brilliantly at the top end. But then England, the first change, good, but they're sort of like the opening batsman or the top order batsman for other teams say, right, if we can just Broad and Anderson, then we can like score the runs. I think Robinson and Archer there are very good because Robinson is like Hazelwood. He's like metronomic, doesn't concede many, and Archer takes wickets and bowls very quick. So at one end you've got hard to score off, and at the other end, then you've got extreme pace coming down at you. So I think those two in a partnership at first change would work very, very well for England.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll go on to the negatives of England's performance. I think that the glaring negative is England's batting. Obviously,
Yes.
it's too many soft dismissals. I think way too many soft dismissals. In the second innings, Root, Butler, Pope, Milan, and in the first innings, pretty much the entire batting order just didn't. None of them was not exactly any special deliveries. It was mainly just poor batting, trying to fend at delivery, trying to push the bat out when they didn't really need to. Realistically, it's not. And I looked at the England scoring rate in both innings. They weren't exactly scoring slowly, so it's not as if there's a necessity to score. They
Yeah,
weren't in a situation. Yeah, they weren't in like a situation where, like Australia, where Australia knew they could, if they piled on the runs as quick as possible, like Travis Head did, then they could have a good chance of winning the test. So
yeah.
England weren't even in that situation. So why do they have to play rash shots? I don't see the necessity to play rash shots.
I
Obviously,
don't
it's
think I don't think they had to play the rash shots. I think because England, they're like under immense pressure, like going to Australia and playing in Australia. It's like, and on like these like very good Australian wickets where you need to score like many runs because it's hard to bowl on, unlike in England where it's easier to bowl on most days when it's cloudy. But, like in Australia, I think it's easier to bat on. So like the pressure of like not having many runs on the board and losing lots of wickets, like 29 for 4, I think, 30 for 4. Then you've got Pope and Butler in at the crease. Those two batted very, very well. But I think the top order, 29 for 4, is just like quite unacceptable in a way. It's like I think they felt they needed to score runs because these pitches are good for batting. So like they feel like, oh, we cannot have like a very slow strike rate. Otherwise, I don't know, because we just have to like keep scoring.
yeah,
That's one of the factors that plays into it. Like the pitches are good for batting, but when you're not batting well, then
doesn't
it's
really
sort of like a
matter.
wasted effort in a way. Because you're trying to score runs, but it's a very hard thing to do. And I think the top order had to like dig deep and just grind out the overs and the runs, but they did, which I think was a very big negative in the top order.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Obviously, it's not. No one's obviously no one can say that it's easy to bat in these conditions. It is hard to bat in
No,
these
it's not.
conditions, but
It's very hard.
these are England international batsmen, so they should be able to. You'd expect them to be able to, like, in terms of pressure, they should, unless they're new to the scene, which most of these players have played at least a few test matches, so they understand the pressure related. I think the overarching thing is that the English batting order are struggling with raw pace. If you look at Australia's bowling lineup, the pacers, you've got Mitchell Stark bowling high 80s, low 90s. Pat Cummins, same thing, high 80s, low 90s. And then you've got Josh Hazelwood, who's bowling mid 80s. Generally, they have a really fast bowling lineup, whereas England don't exactly, only with Josh Archer, only Mark Wood is the person bowling high 80s, low 90s. So England as a team aren't really experienced with really quick bowlers. I feel like
Yes.
the speed of Australian bowlers is really like it's accentuated the conditions, and it's made it so that the variable bounce is more, obviously, that if there's any lateral movement, it's a little bit more. So I think that England are just struggling to face with raw pace, and that's a bit worrying because raw pace isn't going to go away throughout the series. Australia raw pace in Australia is their like main feature of their bowling attack. So I think they're going to have to really adapt to it very quickly.
I also think the sort of in the top 5, so Burns, Hamid, Milan, Root, and Stokes in Australia. So Burns, I think Burns and Hamid, I think this is their first away Australia series. Milan, I think he played in the 2017 one, but I'm not sure. I don't think he played all of the tests. Then Joe Root is Joe Root is the best batsman, but if he's not performing in a country where he should be performing, I don't think many will. Sort of. Stokes as well. I think he missed the 2017 Ashes because of the incident, because of his. Yeah, there's a lack of experience in Australia for the top 5. I mean, in England, then they're brilliant, but I think that's the problem that England face. They need to get back everywhere, and Australia do have that. They have more experience in the top few. So Warner, Harris, Labuschagne, and Smith. Smith, Warner, and Harris. And Labuschagne is just a very good batsman. It's like Burns and Hamid are good, but they're not huge standouts the majority of the time, and they aren't vastly experienced. Same with Milan. I don't think he's got his chance enough. It's he could have been playing 5 years ago, but he wasn't, and he's only just realised his capability in Test cricket now. And I think the lack of experience isn't helping England. So if Milan played a few years earlier, I think by now he could be the one that changes the course of the innings. It's the figure that Joe Root effectively is now. I think Milan could be that, and with 2 of those in the top 4, and I think that would help England a lot. Probably get them a few more runs, maybe 50 more runs. So I think the top order has to change one way or another.
Yeah. So if you were the selector, what would you do with England's top order? How would you make it stronger?
Well, I'm a personal fan, a huge fan of Rory Burns. So I think I would give him another chance. But for the people who don't like him and think that he should be dropped, I would say a replacement for him would be Zach Crawley, maybe. So Hamid and Milan going up to open, and then Crawley at 3. And I think Ben Stokes, I think he should be dropped for the next day-nighter test and bring Johnny Bairstow in. Because Ben Stokes, I mean, he's an all-rounder, and if he's not bowling well, then he's a batsman. And if he isn't batting well, then there are plenty of others who deserve the chance. So he was bowling expensively, and as you mentioned, it would have been more expensive if they had spotted all the nobles. But yeah, he's got out in the same way by the same bowler and caught at the same place twice in 2 innings for low scores. I think if he continues batting, Australia will know his weaknesses and know how to get him out. So I think if you're gonna I think those are the 2 batting changes I would make: Crawley and Bairstow in for Stokes and Burns. But then I think Pope and Butler both played well. Same with Wokes, and then same with Robinson. Then Wood and Leach. I think one pace and a spin. I think you take out Leach, and if you want spin, you bring in Bess. If you don't want spin, then you bring in Anderson and Broad for Wood. But then if you do want the spin, I think it's a hard choice between Wokes and Rob.
Yeah, in some parts, but for me, I'm not a fan of Roy Burns. I think that he's had too many ducks this season. I think he's had the most ducks this year in any English batsman. Obviously, he's facing the new rules, so it's going to be tougher for him. But he is an opening batsman, and if you're an opening batsman, you need to be able to play. Even if you get starts are appreciated more than ducks. So I think I would drop Rory Burns, and then I'd put Milan and Hamid. I like Hamid. I think he can play the paces pretty well. And then number 3. I think Crawley makes sense, but I'd also think of putting Bairstow because it means that you have Bairstow has made loads of starts. So pretty much every inning he makes something in the 20s at least. So he will give you a guarantee of at least a minimum of runs. So you don't need to be worried about ducks. And then you've also got a batsman who's got all the shots. He's a skilled batsman. So I think he's a possibility. And then I'm sort of, I like Pope. I'm half convinced with Butler. I'm not really sure. he's got obviously Butler. His timing. Like, I saw him one of his first shots in second innings of the reverse sweep that went before. He's got the shots. He's a good batsman, but he hasn't really. He except for I think a century scored a few months ago. Apart from that, he doesn't really score very much in Test cricket. And that's actually really worrying for an England team which got such a fragile batting order. You need even a number 7, 8 batsman need to be scoring. But yeah, I think he'll probably just make it, and he'll be kept in the team. Then you've got in terms of bowling, yeah, I like Wokes. And then you've got number 9. You've got Wood, Leach, and Robinson. Robinson has to be kept. Wokes probably as
Yeah.
well. And then you've got the decision: are you going to go with 4 main pacers plus Ben Stokes? Ben Stokes, realistically, his bowling, I don't think it's fair if you drop him, then it's not going to exactly help his performances. In order to get up to match speed, you need to be able to play bowl loads of overs. But the really worrying thing is he can't be using Ashes tests to get back to match speed. That's where we'd hope to have like a practice games and things like that that are washed out. So England are pretty underprepared, because if they had those warm up games, and they could have Ben Stokes would have been already up to speed and playing well. And then because we can't really, the selectors aren't going to give Ben Stokes give him the second test as like another test, just even if he plays bad, just to make sure he's prepared for test 3, 4, 5. He should already be prepared. So I think I wouldn't say it's a rash decision in dropping Ben Stokes or resting him. Not really dropping him, because I would bring him back into the side test 3, but I think just to allow him to tinker with his bowling and just make sure he's not getting out make sure he's because he's been getting out when he's been edging when the ball's going onto he's sort of just been opening himself up a bit too much, and he's risking himself edging it to the slip. So I think he has to go away and work on it. So I think it's a possibility. Ben Stokes could be dropped. But yeah, tell me.
I agree with you for everything apart from a couple of points. I think you say Bairstow going in at 3 and Hamid and Milan opening. I'm convinced with Hamid and Milan. I think those two are very worth their good. Then I don't think Johnny Bairstow has sort of the right technique almost for number 3, because he I think as a player to come down at number 5, 6, 7 when the ball is older, it's not swinging so much, a bit off the seam, and when it bounces a bit less, so he can sort of get on top of the ball almost. But I don't think his technique is good enough to be at number 3 when the ball is like swinging around, and with the like sort of the unreliable openers of England, then I think very, very quickly against the new ball, and I think that would sort of like diminish the confidence that he has. Then also you say Ben Stokes should be kept in the side. I mean, I sort of agree, but not really. I think he should be dropped, because from cricket for like a year or more than a year, he didn't play in any of the tests earlier this year. So I think he's like badly out of form. So what I think he needs to do, I am 100% confident he's working to try and play his best. But I think he needs to take the next test off, just like almost relax a bit, watch what Australia are doing, watch what their batters are doing, what their middle order are doing. So like Alex Carey, Travis Head, what they're doing as like fellow left-handed middle order batsmen. Watch what they're doing, and if they make scores, try and like copy like how they make their runs, like what deliveries they exploit the most, and like how to stay in for longer. So I think he should be rested, and then clever. He needs to work out. He needs to plan how to score the runs. Because if he does that, then he's 100% worth his place in the side. But right now, I don't think he is.
Yeah, no, that's very important. Yeah, they can do a lot from especially Ben Stokes, who's struggling after less match practice.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there is some hope for England in the second test, considering it's a day-night test, which could play to England's strengths. However, the batsmen have to capitalise on this opportunity, because if England do lose this test and are 2-0 down, it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to even have a chance of drawing or winning this series. So yeah, thank you for Tom for this episode. I think it's been really good. Good luck for England in the next test. Hopefully they can put up a fight. I think we're all expecting them to put up a fight, but with England,
Yeah.
either they go out and win the test, or they just completely get flattened. So it's going to be either one. Hopefully not get flattened. But yeah, thank you, Tom, for this episode.
Thank you.
See you on the next one.